The October wind hit hard that morning. Something about it was different than the usual chill you expect that time of year like winter was trying to sneak in early. It cut through the wide Montana plains, carrying with it not just the scent of the cold, but something else too. A faint cry. Now, I've spent enough time on this ranch to know that sound doesn't belong out here. The emptiness of Riverside Ranch, with its miles of open land and the endless horizon, makes it hard to imagine anything that could be in distress. But there it was again, that faint cry, and my blood turned cold. Tom Mitchell, the ranch foreman, was going through his morning rounds like he always did. It was just after dawn, the sun barely beginning to peek over the hills, casting long shadows across the fields. But the cry, it didn't make sense. Not in a place like this. He paused for a second, his hand tightening around the reins of his horse. Convoyne said he was hearing things. But then it came again clearer now, like a faint, distant wail. God help me, he muttered under his breath. Tom had no idea what he was about to find. Not far off the road, in the cold, hard earth by the fence line, lay a tiny baby, barely 3 months old, wrapped in a thin, pink blanket, left there by someone who had driven down the empty road under the cover of darkness. Left there to die. The night had been cold, freezing even, and the baby's lips were already showing signs of hypothermia. They had been left exposed to the elements. No one knew why. But then there was Captain. Captain wasn't just any bull. He was a giant, almost 1,800 pounds of muscle, but he was different. A leader of the herd, calm and collected. He had the kind of temperament that made him a favorite among the ranch hands. He wasn't the type of bull that would rush toward a human. He wasn't aggressive. But something about that cry, something in the way the wind carried it to him, made him lift his head from grazing. He turned his massive body toward the sound, his eyes narrowing with a focus that felt almost human. And there, in the field, Captain did something no one expected. He approached. Now, bulls don't protect people. It's just not in their nature. But Captain wasn't just a regular bull. He had a different kind of understanding. With deliberate care, he moved closer to the fence, closer to the baby. And for the next hour, he stood there, his body positioned between the baby and the road. The other cattle didn't notice. They were doing their thing, grazing, moving along like it was just another day. But Captain? He stood guard. He was different. Tom didn't know what to make of it. When he finally crested the hill and saw Captain, his heart skipped a beat. Captain was standing still, his body between the baby and the road. And there was something in the air, a feeling that made the hairs on Tom's neck stand up. The bull wasn't just standing there. He was protecting her. That was when Tom realized something he couldn't explain. The baby was cold, dangerously cold, but Captain had been using his own body heat to keep her warm. His massive body was positioned perfectly to shield her from the worst of the cold, and the warmth from his body was the only thing keeping her alive. Tom immediately called his wife, Margaret. Maggie, I need you out here to the east pasture and bring every blanket we've got. We need Dr. Peterson here. It's a medical emergency. Tom stayed behind, watching as Captain never moved, never stopped watching the baby. When Margaret arrived, she was shocked. Tom, what in the hell? She didn't finish the sentence. She saw it too. Captain was on guard. He was protecting a baby. Dr. Peterson arrived not long after, and when he saw what was happening, his professional composure cracked. He could see that the baby was still alive, though her core temperature was dangerously low. He quickly wrapped Sarah in the blankets that Margaret had brought, and they all scrambled to get her to the hospital. But Captain? He wasn't moving. He stood there, steadfast. His gaze locked on Sarah as they prepared to leave. There was something in his expression, a deep sense of concern. His body language was unlike anything Tom had ever seen. The bull wasn't just standing watch. He was emotionally invested. He's been standing guard over her all night, Tom said to Dr. Peterson, his voice thick with disbelief. He's been keeping her warm. Dr. Peterson's voice was calm but full of wonder. Whatever he did, it saved her life. As they drove off, Tom couldn't stop watching Captain from the rear view mirror. The bull was still standing there, refusing to leave. And somehow, Tom knew this wasn't just about the baby anymore. Captain had taken it upon himself to protect Sarah. The connection between them, whatever it was undeniable. When Sarah arrived at the hospital, the doctors were amazed that she was still alive. Her body had been exposed to temperatures that should have been fatal for a baby her size, but somehow, she survived. What kept her alive? Dr. Walsh asked. I don't know, Margaret replied, her voice shaky. I think it was him. The bull. The story of the bull's unusual behavior spread quickly. News outlets arrived, reporters were in awe, and people started asking questions. Why did Captain do this? What could have caused such a bond between a baby and a bull? The next morning, as Sarah continued to improve, Tom got a call. It was from Deputy Martinez. He'd been investigating the abandonment of Sarah, but there was little to go on. No evidence, no leads. Whoever had left her knew the area well. They'd made sure there would be no trace. Tom sat back, gripping the phone tight. Whoever did this, they don't deserve her, he said bitterly. And then, a thought crossed his mind. Captain had done something no one expected. He had protected her. But the mystery was far from over. Margaret got an update from Dr. Walsh that afternoon. Sarah was stable, but they needed to make sure her bond with Captain could remain. There was something undeniable between them, and they had to figure out what it meant. It was clear now that the bond they shared was something rare, something special. A few days later, Margaret took Sarah back to the ranch. When Captain saw her, his reaction was immediate. He moved to the fence, his body tense with anticipation. He sniffed the air, recognizing her. And for the first time since the rescue, Captain made a sound low and rumbling, a sound of reassurance, like a purr. Everyone stood in awe. No one had ever seen a bull act this way before. But Sarah? She reached out, tiny hand stretching toward Captain's enormous nose. When he gently touched his nose to her hand, a peaceful calm settled over everyone. It was as if the bull knew she was safe. Over the next few weeks, Captain's behavior shifted dramatically. He no longer pined for Sarah's presence. He ate again. He returned to his herd. But every time Sarah was near, he was there protecting, watching, always aware. The news spread beyond the local community. Animal behavior cited. Researchers studied Captain and Sarah, trying to understand this rare bond. Dr. Temple Grandin herself even cited the ranch, amazed by the bull's instincts. As Sarah grew, the bond between her and Captain only deepened. And when she took her first steps, they were towards the fence where Captain always stood. Years later, Sarah would reflect on that moment, the first time she felt truly safe. She smiled and said, "I don't remember being cold or scared. I just remember feeling safe." And I think that's what love is supposed to feel like. As Sarah continued to grow, the community of Riverside Ranch would always remember the miraculous bond between a baby and a bull, a connection that transcended species and logic. And it's a reminder sometimes, it's the unexpected things that change our lives. Not the people we expect, but the ones who show us love in ways we could never have imagined. And sometimes, that love is all it takes to save a life. Do you think connections like these across species are possible? What do you think this bond means for Sarah's future? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to share this incredible story with your friends. Sometimes, the most unexpected things teach us the most.